Thank you, Jane. Jane reminded me to record right away here, so we're starting recording. I know people are still arriving. And I'm trying to motivate students who are here at the time that we need to look at that course project as soon as possible and get that overview of it instead of just relying on going to like assignments or something. We want to keep using sources whenever we do anything. I've noticed that some folks dropped the ball, so to speak, in Module 2. They did look at sources and use a few sources in Module 1. Some didn't use them in Module 1, even though the template had them all. And then Module 2, some people sort of forgot, thought they could answer something with no sources. Nope, doesn't work. If you didn't use sources, do it over. How many have the both the template and the frequently asked questions? How many actually have saved those? Okay. They're not there to give you extra things to read. They're there to help you throughout your college career with Rasmussen Paralegal. They are supposed to make things easier, and of course you have 2 more documents to skim, but a lot of the questions and problems people have are covered. Lots of things have already been covered. If you lost yours, whatever, do not be afraid to call. Yeah, I suppose I could review stuff that that we find in course content. Basically, I just do it as a website. Although I don't do URLs, and I know that some folks want them, I don't care about them very much. For course content where I already know I have access to it, that is not it. Trying to look at my handy dandy example, but I have one. I'm going to pause. Sorry for those listening by recording. Forgot to turn it back on. I was setting things up. Back up anyway. I do all the readings. I better repeat this. Otherwise, the project won't fall into context and learn more than you have to learn about court jurisdiction. Your research will make much more sense if you learn about how the U.S. works. learn what federalism means, learn the branches. You have independent branches that each have a role, and they operate as a kind of a check and balance against each other. So no one branch bosses the other branches and tells them what to do constantly. Think about these questions in the discussion. Identify the branches. They're similar in all states. Not all states have two parts of the legislature. Some states just have a state assembly or state legislature that's only one body, but others have, like Minnesota has both a state senate and a state house of representatives, and the federal government has a house and senate. I'd ask you, but here's a kind of a big $100,000 question is, are all citizens part of the government? Or I could ask you, who rules ultimately? Over the government? The way I put it, kind of the main politicians are the voters. That's the way I put it. That's the way I put it. They're supposed to be, yes. Sometimes the largest group of politicians are sometimes lazy and they don't give clear directions, or they ask their representatives to do things just for their own personal interest. Some people will call their state representative or their congressman, and the only thing they want to talk about is their personal beefs about something. They want something fixed for themselves, but they're not very interested in what happens to the whole country or the whole state. That's too bad. But what I suggest on a nonpartisan basis, what I suggest is ask your state representative what his or her priorities are on a subject, instead of asking them to fix something always. They ask an open-ended question. Something like that. I would ask open-ended questions. You can do so without having to be an expert or a partisan person. I know lots of my students are not very interested in getting very involved with partisan stuff, but if you're not very interested in partisan things, just ask an open-ended questions and listen, okay? That way you learn about what the people who were elected wish to do and how they would go about it. And I'm sure they'll tell you that each representative has to be, to get anything done, has to be part of a team. Yes, they do have to choose which team they're on, which is generally, in most states, it is a political party. Some states, they don't caucus or they don't meet as political parties, but they still have to form some kind of a team based on overall point of view usually, and get a majority before they can do anything. So they do teamwork, but they still have individual priorities. Each representative does. What are your top priorities? What do you think should happen with our roads? How about our law enforcement? Ask open-ended questions and just let the person talk. What a lot of people do is they try to pin them down on to get the representative to agree with them on something that maybe the representative has nothing really to do with. Maybe it's your local school board, your city council or something that are in charge of the problem. But I would tend to ask them something general. If you have something specific in mind, of course, you can ask that too, but I would give them a chance to explain, regardless of whether you think you would ever vote for the person or not. Give them a chance to explain, and you will learn so much about how our government works. Plus, one of the things you'll find out is that the people who are your state representatives especially are not remote big shots that you can't talk to. They are people you can talk to. One of the no longer my state rep, but somebody who used to be my state representative, you know what she did for a living before she was state representative? She was a daycare provider. I think most of my students can relate to that. Not a towering big shot person who was so independently wealthy that the person had time to put millions of dollars into running for office. That's just not real, especially when you come to state representatives. You get to national offices, yeah, and you tend to get people who have different type of situation perhaps, but most of them also started out like the state representative in some way. They held jobs, they ran a small business or something, you know. Comments, questions? Make it a goal to get to know somebody within the system. And of course, and find out, I'd like you to find out that there are people like you. Okay? It's going to help you in legal work to feel like you are, to understand that you are part of the system. If there is a system, you are part of it. Okay? You are part of the system. If you do not have the right to vote in this country, you are still part of the system. You have influence over people who do have the right to vote. Most of my students do have the right to vote in this country, and you are definitely 100% a part of the system, the most important part. So get over being, if you're intimidated, get over it, because if you're going to be working with lawyers, lawyers do come on strong, and they seem like, I don't know how to explain it, but all I can tell you is, you know, and I've been a lawyer for many years and so on, but you find out that lawyers at the highest level, the judges, whatever, are people. So this is the live lecture points, Federalism and Research, FAR. I'm inviting you to the Justice Studies Club. We've done 3 webinars this year. One was unwanted phone calls, another was a mock trial on a mental illness commitment, and another was a role play about violation of park rules. I'm working with people who graduated from Rasmussen, but also people who are currently in Rasmussen to do presentations. If you'd like to do one, I don't know if I'll have time to get one ready for the end of this term, but I still plan to do one for next term to prepare a special one, but I'll need several people to act in a mock trial. It's more or less acting, so you don't have to study in advance a lot. You'll just be given a full script, but it's fun to do a role play or mock trial. I may do one. I did a murder mystery a few years ago. I may do another murder mystery if I get enough actors. You learn about court procedure by doing it, so they are fun. Or I may do a more humorous one. Obviously, murder mysteries are not super humorous, but we could do a more humorous one. But if you wish to join, go to Facebook and look for Rasmussen College Online Justice Studies Club. I realize that's a handful. And go to LinkedIn and look for Justice Studies Club for Friends of Rasmussen College. I'm on both. I'd like to gradually move people into LinkedIn because it's more professional, but Facebook is still more popular, so I'm sort of running the club in both places. And I've got a bunch of alumni and some current students. Anyway, join up. Just go and then apply. You end up applying because I didn't want to make these public groups because then you get all these rude replies. You know where I'm coming from? I really don't want to. I'd rather have people who are actually a part of Rasmussen or used to be part of Rasmussen in rather than have just anybody. Yes, they're all viewable within the club. I've posted, I've got recordings on there. Yep. Yeah, they are fun. The Module 3 course project, a lot of this is about keeping track of what you tried and being willing to get good help. All states are not the same. Most of the information is right in the highest court website. Okay. The problem with the court's websites is you may not understand thoroughly what you're looking at. So do not be afraid to ask me. Okay. When you find information you do not fully comprehend, ask me right away. Let's say that some student, and for whatever reason, they couldn't contact me. Yes. Prefer it for the jurisdiction in which you live now, or if you are in the process of moving or are going to be a paralegal in a different state, of course, you could do it for that state. Let's say that you were from Minnesota, but you were packing up your stuff and the end of this term you were going to move to Texas. You could do it for Texas, okay? Most of the time it's the place that you live in now if you're considering working there. So the good thing this is being done now where I would say, well, I'm going to do it for if it took another 2 months to get this done, I would probably say I think I'm going to do it for the what is it? The Virgin Islands or something. I have a old school friend that is in the U.S. Virgin Islands. He went to 1 year of law school and then he became an IRS supervisor, Internal Revenue Service for the Virgin Islands. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you with it. Help you with states. I want you to get familiar with Lexis, but it's not going to have the information we need. The biggest thing is the state Supreme Court websites. Those have been getting better and better. This would be number 1, and then State Bar would be probably number 2, and State Law Library would be number 3. Okay. The other thing is you have also you have the paralegal guide. Okay. So, and I'll put that in the chat for those of you that are here with me. If you use that, basically going to the introduction to law and the legal system and getting that going is the best. So you get to the paralegal guides and you go to that American legal system and court structures. Can you guys see this? Okay. Tells you this. State court structure chart. So that will help you in most states. To get full information, though, and to understand it more thoroughly, I would tend to go to the state courts. I'm going to go to state courts, and I'm going to start with Florida just because it's one of the more complicated states. It's similar to Illinois. Would you like to see Florida and Illinois to start with, or what states? Florida, Illinois. What else? Normally we do Minnesota. We have campuses in all those states. Yeah. Okay. And then other states. Not really a problem. It's. I think you're going to say, well, why is he showing us easy stuff? Because frankly, it's not going to be too hard for you. But understanding it thoroughly, I think is not super easy. So ask a question. Okay, so we're going to go to Florida courts. flcourts.org. And it does give you a clue on understanding the courts and then the court structure. The court structure is what we're after, but of course understanding each layer of it helps. If you started from the Supreme Court of Florida and worked your way down, you could do that, or you could work your way up from the trial courts at the county level. The Supreme Court of Florida sounds like it's not an appellate court, but it's the highest appellate court. It's not called appeals, but it's the highest appellate court. So if you say, let's say there's a law from the state legislature, and it has to work its way through the court system because people challenge the meaning of part of it, or the meaning, or whether it's constitutional under the Florida Constitution. Florida has its own constitution. Who is the final judge of Florida law? It's this group called the Florida Supreme Court. Okay, 7 justices. At least 4 have to agree. So a majority of those 7 justices are the final judge of Florida law. How about the U.S. Supreme Court? Are they above them? No, not unless it's a U.S. situation. If it doesn't involve citizens or companies from at least 2 states, the lawsuit doesn't involve what they call diversity, which is that it involves at least 2 states. Or if it does not involve U.S. Law or U.S. constitutional law, the Florida Supreme Court would be the final judge. Questions, problems with that? Most of the courts in each state that are the highest are called Supreme Court. New York, it is not. It's called Court of Appeals, which is confusing for people from out of state who move into New York. But just trust me, most are called Supreme. If you're New York, you have to kind of mentally cross that off. But everybody else, Supreme Court of your state. Below that is, in Florida, is very similar to Illinois. There's district courts of appeal. And so if something, they have to obey what is finally decided on the law from the Supreme Court, but they otherwise are interpreting the bulk of cases where the trial judge has supposedly made a mistake, an error of law. Most of those are handled by the district courts of appeal in Florida, and they are the final judge. What are the trial courts? Florida, there are not multiple trial courts. There's just 2. There's the county court, which has limited jurisdiction, civil disputes of $30,000 or less, and I believe various other things, and you can read about them. And then there's a higher level of trial court called circuit, and they do some appeals in the sense that they are, some cases from the county court does get retried in the circuit court. Okay. Now I'm going to, I'm not seeing any questions. I'm going to go to Illinois. Illinois courts. Supreme Appellate Circuit. They don't have county. They have Supreme Appellate Circuit. Very similar to what we just looked at. Supreme at the very top. Appellate. They call it a court instead of courts, plural. But it operates much the same. You have districts. Much the same as Florida in terms of practicality, but technically it's called one appellate court. And then circuit. This is, believe it or not, this is sort of this is similar to Minnesota, except Minnesota does not have circuit. we have district. And Minnesota has Supreme Court. Very familiar. It's kind of neat that I've gotten to meet some of the folks who are on or have been on. I got to say hello to Lori Gildy. Let's see, Natalie Hudson. Really don't know the other ones too well. I've maybe said hello to them. But those two I've met in person, talked to them. Very high level. Again, they don't hear all the appeals. They hear certain appeals. Much of it is taken care of much of the appeals are taken care of by the Court of Appeals. An appeal only handles alleged errors by a trial court. Typically, there are certain unusual cases where a high court will hear other things, but their basic idea of an appeal is that a trial judge made an error. Now, there are certain administrative matters that can go right to the Court of Appeals and certain election matters that can go right to the Supreme, but basically, this is true. And I know some of these judges too. I actually, this judge came to Long Prairie, Renee, when she was pretty new here. Let me see here. Oh, one of the others that maybe that left. But I have met several of these judges. But anyway, she's one that I definitely remember. Two of the judges of appeals were in Long Prairie, and said hello to them, talked to them, and they talked about some of this. I talked to them a little bit about some of the stuff that we do in paralegal studies, and they recommended, of course, that we work on what's called IRAC, issue rule, application, and conclusion. And we do that in some of our courses, so we are on the same page with them. And then, of course, you've got the, in Minnesota, district is the only trial court. In some states, you have a more traditional system with several different types of trial courts, like Minnesota used to have, but we don't have anymore. Well, this is a little hard to get to right now. We've got too many things running. Anyway, the district is the trial court. Any others? Any other states you need? As I did Florida, Minnesota, and Illinois. No, I didn't talk about the clerk of appellate courts. The clerk of appellate courts would be similar to jobs in other states. They are there to help process the appeals and work on scheduling and various other things. Keep things organized. Yeah, it's administrative, but it's high-level administration. It's working for a clerk of appellate courts would be a high-level, fairly difficult job. keeping track of the efforts you made in your research is important. A lot of people don't keep track of their efforts, but I want you to. Effort counts more than being perfect. But call on me so you get a full picture of how your state court system works, okay? For instance, Texas has a little more complicated appellate scheme with separate criminal and civil. Most states don't. And so understanding that would help with research, for instance, in Texas. Not knowing that creates a roadblock, a block to understanding. Not knowing that criminal is different than civil creates a block to understanding, but not knowing that in most states, if put it this way, you power through the block if you understand that in most states, a judge that handles civil trials also handles criminal trials. Generally not specialized in most states. Even if lawyers are specialized, typically judges are not. So try to piece it together as well as you can. You can have a situation where on the same day, the same judge is handling two completely different types of courts, and you might say, the look and feel of it is the same. You've got the same judge sitting there with the same robe, and first they handle some conciliation court cases that are civil and involve collection agencies and individuals trying to collect bills from people. And you say, well, that's not criminal. That's true. You would be right. That's not criminal. They're just trying to collect bills, and they're not allowed to use any criminal process to collect a bill. They have to use only civil. Plaintiff wants the money. Plaintiff is a private party. Plaintiff's attorneys do not have authority to charge with a crime. There are cases that appear to be criminal due to contempt powers of the judge, but return of private property or dollars is the goal. Criminal is exactly the opposite. It's a different procedure under different laws. It's considered a different court, and I realize that it's kind of abstract because you're sitting in the same courtroom. It looks like the same court, but it's not. The same judge becomes a criminal judge, judging criminal case. It's a different kind of a court system. And even the level of proof that has to be brought is different. The purpose of it is to punish the guilty and let the innocent go free. It's not to fine-tune how much money somebody owes to somebody else, okay? Public prosecutors have the right to sign complaints for criminal charges. Private attorneys do not. If I paid, I don't remember what it is, $45 and went from non-practicing license to practicing license, tomorrow I would not have the authority to charge anybody with a crime, even a small little minor crime like illegal parking, you know, none. Does that make sense to you? You understand that? No authority. Don't have authority to interfere with public process either. I had a client many years ago. Client came to me at the beach and asked me as an attorney, and I was a practicing attorney for many years, but and I still was at that time. He came to me at the beach and he said, I want you to overrule the decision of the lifeguard. The lifeguard is only like 2 or 3 years older than me, and he ordered me off the beach. I want you to order him to let me back on the beach. What authority do you think I had as an attorney within my county? An attorney practicing in this county? What authority did I have to order the lifeguard to let the person back on the beach? What do you think? None. You're absolutely right. If I had been standing there with the other, with the members of the park board or something, I suppose I could have said, well, hey, park board, why don't you tell the lifeguard to let this guy back on there? They would have said, this is not a regular meeting of the park board. We're just chatting. We can't make a decision like this. Besides, they would just laugh. They'd say, you have nothing to do with that. If that kid goes back and defies a lifeguard, we're going to call the cops. And again, when the police arrived, I would have no authority. Now, in the courtroom later, of course, if abusive conduct took place against the person, et cetera, of course, he could try suing the city or something like that. That's his deal. But there's a lot of confusion over jurisdiction out there. The more you understand the jurisdiction, and you understand a lot of it already, that's obvious from your answers. You already understand that just becoming an attorney doesn't give a person jurisdiction over everything. Even becoming a judge does not. If a district judge had been there at the beach, the district judge would not have had authority to tell the lifeguard anything. It has to have been regularly filed. Somebody brought up clerk of appellate courts. Well, that would have had to been regularly filed with the, like I say, some lawsuit or something would have had to been filed with the court administration of the correct county and the correct district. Then process and papers would have had to be filed and so on. And then if there was finally a trial, then the judge would have the authority. You see where I'm coming from? The judge doesn't have generalized authority over everything. The judge has authority only over cases that are properly brought before the judge using the correct papers. You can't just call the judge on the phone. If the judge is there in criminal court, for instance, the judge can't just suddenly turn it into a civil case and say, well, you don't have enough proof for criminal, I'm going to turn it into civil. The paperwork has not been done. Okay? Yeah, authority and privilege is an odd thing. Remember to use several learning methods. If you're basically a visual learner, also try to repeat things out loud. If you think you're an auditory learner, also do the reading, because it turns out that the learning methods, theorists were partially wrong. You should not stick with your favorite learning method. You actually learn more if you use multiple, at least two learning methods. Remember that for the future for Mod 4, 5, and 6, you will want your Lexis login. So contact me if you don't have it. And that and other points are, let's see, where is that? I guess I'm just going to remind you to use your template in your FAQ. A lot of students seem to have either lost track of it or never got it. I suppose it's because they're missing the announcements and the course messages. Announcements and course messages are a big deal in this course. So use them, okay? That's where I'm going to, yes. The question is, what do we need to turn in for the project? Is it a paper explaining the answers to the questions? Technically, yes. They're technically not my questions. They're technically the questions in the assignment. But if you go to the assignment, you're going to say, well, it's got some specifics in there that we have to answer, but it also gives me a chance to explain what I tried. And if you keep track of what you tried, you're going to find that even if you ran out of time, et cetera, you're still going to grab some points because you showed your efforts. And the efforts are similar to what you should be doing in the law offices. Okay? So you answer these 4 questions. And number 4, some students skip that. Don't skip it. What efforts did you make? Even if you were easily successful, I still want you to answer number 4. But answer all number 4 in a numbered list, all 4 of them. And do not be embarrassed to include in your efforts contacting me. That is, I'm good at researching in each state, okay? I've had a lot of practice. Not a problem. Thanks for visiting with me, everybody.